This is the second video in my series about my slow fashion journey, and I'm doing this series for Me Made May because I don't have the bandwidth to post a picture of what I'm wearing every single day or make a vlog or anything like that. But I wanted to share with you my personal slow fashion journey and how I think, whatever bits of it that I think are universal. I may speak in the third person or whatever, but a lot of this is just my personal feelings. So this episode is about sustainability and environmentalism, and I know that this will possibly rub some people the wrong way. So I want to start out with a caveat of this is not about shaming you for the kind of fabric or yarn choices you make. This is about me and my commitment to be a better steward of the resources that I have and to make choices that feel like I'm really putting my money where my mouth is in terms of the environment. So if you find these kind of conversations to be activating, I hope that you will get something useful out of this and not feel judged. So for those who aren't familiar with this kind of conversation and why that could be activating for people, there has been for many years this sort of, I don't even know if I want to call it a debate, but sort of like a disagreement in the knitting community. And I find it more in the knitting community, but maybe that's because I'm not in the sewing community as much. Essentially, there are people who firmly believe that we should only ever use all natural fibers and that anything else makes you a bad person and you're polluting and microplastics wash out in the wash and blah, blah, blah. And then on the other side, there are people who are saying, well, natural fibers are not always affordable. They're not affordable to me on my budget. I don't have access to shop at the kind of places that sell natural fibers where I live, right? And all of that is valid. All of that is true. Both sides, I think, have really good points that they make. For me, I think something that I'm aware of is that my budget does permit me to buy pretty much exclusively natural fibers if I want. I'm not wealthy, but I'm also okay with spending $50 and up on a sweater quantity of yarn. That's not gonna hurt me. And I feel like if you care about the planet and you can pretty easily afford to shop, with sustainability in mind, then why wouldn't you? That's where I've landed, right? And let's be clear, there are things that I have changed in my life because I wanted to do things that were better for the planet. I eat meat less. I spend more on eggs than I used to because I really need to know that those chickens weren't kicked around. I need as much guarantees as I can get so that certified humane logo is worth the $2 extra for me to buy the more expensive eggs. So long before I began making my own clothing, I had already kind of started going down this path of buying the humanely raised, pasture raised, whatever, beef means I don't get to eat beef every day. Fine, I don't need to eat beef every day. It's fine, I can eat it once a week. Beef is not a necessity every day. And I think that it can be hard for some people to realize how much of a mindset shift that is if you were raised with kind of a typical American diet, or if you were raised by people who really valued eating meat a lot. For some reason, my parents just liked eating meat and they wanted to feed us meat. And I think, maybe what you feed growing children is different than what you choose to eat for yourself as an adult. I enjoy eating meat, but I also do eat vegan more because I think that's good for the planet. So I had been on this journey for a while, right? and you know, making all kinds of like financial and time-based concessions in life, where it's like I'm always striving to balance like what's the most I can do to be better for the planet without burning out on it, right? Without feeling guilty every time I throw away a can of cat food, or a cat food can, instead of rinsing it and recycling you know. Like, yeah, like I try not to beat myself up for when I do things that are, you know, 75% versus 100% environmentally sound. I really believe in the phrase, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, right? Like, you should be striving to be good. Nobody's perfect. And on the other hand, I think there's a philosophy that's kind of making the rounds, which is sort of that, like, it's not me that's the problem, it's these big corporations that are polluting the earth. And I find that that has really limited usefulness. Yes, we need to hold companies accountable. We need to hold, you know, billionaires accountable for what they're doing to the planet. But I also think that it's very convenient to say that nothing I do makes a difference, therefore I don't need to change. I do need to change. I think that the lifestyle I was sort of born into, environmentally speaking, was the product of generations of change. And if I went back 4 or 5 generations, I would find my ancestors living pretty sustainably. So that change didn't happen by accident, right? Like, we were led down that particular path. But it's up to me as an empowered adult to look at what are the things that I can change. And yeah, I guess I believe in personal responsibility, and I also believe in, if you're going to talk the talk, you need to walk the walk. So I like natural fibers. I like to have garments that are made out of as natural as possible, as reasonable fibers. The big caveat is I like a little nylon in my socks, because I think sock yarn without nylon, well, it's not, to me, sock yarn it has some nylon in it. And I know that nylon is like a petroleum product. It's not great for the earth, but it makes your socks last longer. So you have this kind of balance of like, am I going to throw a bunch of stuff away and waste a lot of time and money? Or am I going to make something that, you know, maybe contains a little bit of this like bad product, but like, you know, I get a product that lasts a long time. And frankly, if I'm going to take the time, it takes me a week at least to knit a pair of socks, I would like to wear them more than a month. You know, I want them to last me a couple years, and they will if they have a little nylon in them. So that's just sort of the kind of, I guess that's a good entry point to just talking about how I feel about sustainability and environmentalism in the context of my personal slow fashion journey. So I do still buy ready-to-wear clothes. I am very intentional about what I will purchase from somebody else. I look at the fiber content, of course. I look at the quality of production. And I remember my grandma, who was a sewist, telling me to look at the seams of garments, and that's how you know if it's quality or not. If the seams are finished in a really sloppy way, don't buy it. And there have been times in my life when I didn't really have the resources to be that choosy, but I definitely am now. And, you know, I think there's also like a point in your life where you kind of stay the same size for a while. And so you start to observe like, oh, I've had this dress for 5 years, it's still going strong, you know? And then you think, I would buy another dress from that company. You know, which like maybe when you're like in your like younger years and you're still growing into the grown-up body you're gonna have someday, that's not happening. Nowadays, of course, my weight fluctuates, but I can still see like this dress has stood up, right? So one of the big like shifts that's happened for me is the understanding that expensive is not necessarily good. Things that are high quality will almost inevitably cost more than things that are low quality. But things that cost more are not necessarily high quality. So you do have to start paying attention if you want to have, things that are going to last longer. And I think my personal style has shifted because of my attention to like durability and longevity. That means something different to me now. I think I used to feel almost like embarrassed if I owned a garment for too long. Like if I had, I'm still wearing the same sweater that, here's a picture of me from 2015 in that sweater, I should probably get rid of it. And now I don't feel that way. Like unless there's actual visible wear on the garment, I think it's amazing if something lasts many years. I'm excited that, wow, I still love wearing this after all these years. Like this is a total hit, and I think that's something that, it has changed the way I make for sure, and the kinds of things I make, and it's changed the way I shop. I have come to really appreciate things that give a lot. So, basics, I think. I used to spend as little as possible on things like a plain white t-shirt or a basic pair of socks or underwear or whatever. And now I actually spend more money. I would say I spend significantly more than what I used to on those things, because I know that, if you buy a pair of jeans, you're going to wear them all the time. You're going to wear them with so many things. And so it's worth maybe spending a little more. And then when they get a hole in them, it's worth repairing them, right? Because like I own a pair of jeans now that I've repaired at least 3 times. I think 3 times I've repaired because they just blow out on the inner thigh. My thighs rub together, right? A lot of people's do. And your jeans just wear out from constant, rubbing. And I've just repaired it. And I've been like, okay, maybe these aren't my nice jeans, right? They're definitely now jeans that I would wear under a skirt or under a dress, because they've been repaired a lot, and each time I repair them, it's a bigger patch. But I think that I just appreciate things more, that like these jeans gave me 18 months, and then they blew out, and then I patched them and they gave me another year, and then I patched them and they gave me another year. I really appreciate that stuff. I appreciate a t-shirt that fits just right, because let me tell you, when you're looking at t-shirts, there's a lot of really bad fit, right? So I have definitely shifted towards mending things, repairing things, and I've also started to for a few years now, I've been thinking about replacing things. So sometimes you rediscover, maybe through a photo or something, like, oh, remember that sweater I loved? Oh my God, I loved that sweater. And I eventually got rid of it because maybe it didn't fit anymore or something. But like, maybe I'll knit a sweater like that reminds me of that sweater I loved. And so I'm starting to think about like the things I wear all the time. And I have some ready to wear sweaters that it's like, there's gonna come a winter when I pull this out and it's just ratty and I can't wear it like in good conscience outside the house anymore. So I'm gonna knit something in that color, or with that same kind of fiber. Like I want to match the thing I had because I wore it for years and years and loved it. And I think that all of these things are just practices that I have sort of adopted because of my concerns about, how do I live my full fashion truth, I guess, and also try to minimize my impact on the planet. Or in other cases, maximize my impact, because I do think that the choices we make matter. And the more people are choosing, say, to knit sweaters, if you are choosing to knit sweaters with 100% wool, well, that's going to change the wool industry. if enough of us are doing it. So I think that goes back to that whole like blame the H&Ms of the world, blame the Gap, blame Old Navy, and like take the blame off the consumer. Well, those companies didn't become who they are without us. Like, we supported them, right? And sure, we had immense social pressure too, but they have the power they have now because we gave it to them. So we have to, I think, own up to our part in that. And part of that for me is like just realizing that like we have a role to play and like our choices matter. And if we got to the wonderful point in the future where there is like public policy and massive societal change that regulates these industries in the way they need to be regulated, what are we going to do at that point, right? Like, is that it? Is that it? We just say, okay, great. But now suddenly clothes cost a lot more because you have to pay a living wage for someone to make them. I mean, I think a lot of people take it for granted that they will always have goods and services available to them cheaply, locally, etc. And that's not true. So I would highly encourage everyone who cares even a little about the environment to try to make your own clothes, because there's nothing more sustainable than the labor you do for yourself, right? There's nothing more ethical, I would say. You know what that worker was treated like because you were that worker. So yeah, that's something, that's another piece. This conversation is a little all over the place, but it's just because I have a lot of questions, not answers. I have a lot of sort of incoherent thoughts floating around, but what it comes down to for me is that, making my own clothes and learning how to knit sweaters, knit garments for myself, knit my own socks. It's really made me appreciate what these things are, what they do for me. And also I've started to look at like all cloth and all consumable goods in the light of what I've learned about clothing that I make. So things like shoes. Who makes the shoes? Where are they made? I don't think I ever thought about that before I was like making my own clothes. And then I really could question it. I mean, yes, there have been like high profile stories in the news about, tennis shoes being made in exploitative sweatshops, etc. But like, to really think about like, what about like Danskos? Like, who's making them? Are these skilled artisans? Are they underpaid? Are they children? Whatever. Like all shoes and all consumable goods, right? All the kind of things that we're told we should just buy and not think about where they came from. The baskets you buy at IKEA, or all the textiles that you buy at Bed Bath & Beyond, your bath towels, right? All of that kind of stuff. I think it's just got me thinking about this and like, how do I make the most of and wisely steward the resources I have? And, one of the things like I've gone back to doing, which is something that we did when I was a child, is that when a t-shirt gets old, you cut it up and you use it as rags for cleaning furniture. Because why not? Like, it's still cloth that you can use. And why would you go and buy special cloths for wiping your furniture? Who invented that, right? So, I'm starting to think about how to like downcycle things, so to speak. I recently made some pillows for my couch out of pillows that were like, standard size, like sleeping bed pillows. And they had just sort of like lost a lot of fluffiness. And I thought, okay, I'll just make a new casing out of cotton fabric and then put the stuffing in there. So it's like this stuffing, which had lost a lot of its oomph, fits in a smaller space and is now a fat pillow, if that makes sense, versus a deflated pillow. So yeah, like I think I'm just starting to realize the value of everything around me and what I have access to, and try to do the most that I can with that. I will just do one more kind of like comment on natural fibers. So once I started using natural fibers, I think I really started from the perspective of these are better for the earth, right? And I should try to use things that are good for the earth. I started to really appreciate what our ancestors knew, right? Which is that wool is amazing at keeping your body temperature regulated, you know, absorbing moisture, so if it rains a little, you're not instantly soaked in your sweater, you know, keeping you from being stinky. Like, you don't have to wash wool sweaters as often. I didn't know that until I knit a wool sweater, and then I was like, oh, and then I heard someone say that, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, like I don't have to wash this every time I wear it because it's from an animal and it's designed to keep that animal from being like disgusting, which like I recently touched a fresh off the sheep fleece for the first time and they are disgusting. So if it can keep a sheep clean enough that it doesn't have health issues, then it can certainly deal with my armpit sweat. You know, it's just stuff like that, right? And learning, you know, oh, like, yeah, linen is very cool and it tends to like maybe like grow and stretch a little over time and be drapey, and that's great for hot weather. Oh, that's why everyone in ancient Egypt wore linen all the time, right? Not just because it's what they had. They could have been wearing wool, actually. They had the trade networks. But it made sense because of the climate. And so you just start to learn about like the properties of natural fibers when you're working with them and when you're learning about them intentionally. And I think it's, for me, just confirmed that I want to stick to using natural fibers. I want to stick to kind of tapping into ancestral wisdom. I'm not hard and fast about this. Like, I definitely use a lot of yarn that is dyed with acid dyes, which arguably are less good for the environment, but I like the colors they produce. I feel like you have to pick your battles. And for me, having everything botanically dyed is just not something that I feel is super important to me at this phase in life. I have, used some things that are botanically dyed, and I have dyed some yarn myself with indigo and also with Kool-Aid, which is, I guess, pretty much like an acid dye, so I guess that doesn't count. But it's food safe, so you can do it at home. You can do it in your bowls or pots that you have in your kitchen and still eat out of them later. So yeah, it's just a lot of thoughts loosely gathered into a ball that I've called sustainability and environmentalism. And that's kind of where I'm at right now in my slow fashion journey. I don't have any like words of wisdom or guarantees to offer you. I can't promise you anything. I can't, tell you this is how you must do it. And I would discourage you from listening to people who tell you you must do it this way. But I have been kind of thinking about that as I've been making clothes, and I think I've been able to pay more attention to it as a result of making clothes. So yeah, that's pretty much the long and short of it. I hope this has been somewhat informative, and I would love to hear, if you want to comment below, tell me what you think is your sort of like right fit for your journey. Where are you landing in that sort of sustainability experience? I would love to know, because I think it can be different for a lot of us. And I think that it's always fascinating to me to hear what other people are thinking about in regards to their making and the environment. It's never a conversation I don't want to have. So thank you for listening, and I hope you will watch this entire series, because I promise other episodes will be more coherent than this one. All right, thank you. Bye.